He's just joining right now,
Oh,
Commissioner.
okay. Okay, so call the meeting to order. Welcome to all of our guests on this, our last meeting for the 2022 year. Janelle, would you like to go through the virtual meeting guidance?
Of course. Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. Number 1, please ensure your mic is muted unless you are speaking. Number 2, please state your name before speaking. Number 3, in general, please have your cameras on if possible. If you run into technological challenges, you may turn it off. Number 4, as a reminder, the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be. And this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. So these are the rules for our final meeting of this 2022 year. Let's have a great meeting, everyone, and welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. That will take us to announcements. Michael, do we have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements. President Hubble, if we would pause at the consent calendar, I'll run through the consent calendar really quickly since there's so many items on it.
Okay, that will take us to introduction of Mary Powers, a lab manager. Bernardi.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to share that we've been successful in hiring a new lab manager. Her name is Mary Powers, and she started right at the end of November, beginning of December. So she's been around for a couple of weeks and hit the ground running. It's been great. We've had a nice benefit of having a little overlap with Carol Milkey, who is our lab manager who's actually retiring. So congratulate Carol when you see her at her retirement, and also welcome Mary if you see her around. Mary came to us from Indiana. Originally, she is from Northwest Indiana along Lake Michigan, and she had worked at the Indiana Animal Disease Diagnostic Laboratory, where she helped in the toxicological unit and responsible for training staff, as well as assessing water quality to help diagnose animal disease. And she also was integral in validating new methods using instrumentation for this specific purpose. And most recently, after moving from Indiana, she came to Wisconsin, and she's been the lead toxicologist for the state of Wisconsin crime lab. And she was responsible for performing state-of-the-art testing to assess the presence or absence of drugs and alcohol in biological matrices. So she has top-notch laboratory experience, and also as part of her work at the state crime lab, she's a seasoned communicator since she has to work with the public, journalists, attorneys, judges, and law enforcement officials. Please welcome Mary. A couple personal items about her. She currently lives in Wanakee with her husband and son, and she also has a French bulldog, and her son is a toddler. So she says when she's not chasing after her toddler, she loves to sail on Lake Michigan and bake tasty treats. And I have to say, I have firsthand experience of the tasty treat baking because we are in that time of year. So again, let's welcome Mary, and thanks.
Okay, welcome to the district, Mary. Enjoy your tenure. And that will take us to the next introduction. Eric Dundee is going to introduce Adam Carlson.
Yep, thank you, Commissioner. Eric Dundee, Director of Operations and Maintenance. Here to welcome Adam Carlson to our team. He was actually hired and started about the same time Mary did, so right at the end of November. He comes to us from a pipe insulation company where he traveled around Wisconsin doing HVAC and plumbing pipe insulation. Before that, he actually served in the Marine Corps as a sergeant, as a combat engineer working in demolitions. So he's had a varying degree of background, and in his free time, he enjoys hunting, fishing, and training his golden retriever in water retrieval. Please help me and welcome Adam to the district.
Okay, welcome, Adam. Enjoy your tenure with the district. Makes me think of the movie Hurt Locker, I think it was, the demolitions. Okay, do we have any appearances by the public? Any appearances by the public? Okay, I don't see anybody with their hands up, so that will take us to the consent calendar where we have 10 items. Michael, you're going to explain or review some of the items?
Thought I'd give just a brief overview since there are so many items on the consent calendar, and it reflects a lot of work that's going to be done in 2023. Apart from the normal items such as a cash statement, meeting minutes, and sewer extension plans, you'll see item F for an award of a contract, and we received really good bids. And Ahern Construction is a low bidder, and that project it will be $2 million under our budget estimates, which is really good news. Item G, the West Interceptor extension repairs, that is over budget by $225,000. So we're asking for an award of a contract to Terra Engineering and increase the project costs. Item H, the Northeast Interceptor Wanakee extension. That is the next step in professional services from Strand and Associates. And while it looks like it's an increase in scope, it really isn't. We're just chunking out the phases of the engineering from the preliminary engineering and alternative analysis to design engineering, etc. So that's routine. Item I, the PS17 force main relief increase in scope is $70,000 increase in scope, just because of a longer route and ecological surveys with that project. And then finally, the relocation order in item J. This is procedural, and we're expecting that the force main relief project, we will be requiring property and easements, and there could be the need to use eminent domain. It's usually a last resort for us, but this at least gets the clock ticking. So if we need that tool, it's available to us. So we're looking for the commission to authorize us to proceed down that manner if we need to. So with there, I'll pause and see if there are any comments or questions or polls from the commission.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions on any of the 10 items related to the consent calendar? Okay, it was, Grant?
Sure. Yeah, just wanted to confirm, Michael, if there is a need to use eminent domain, does that also come back to the commission, or does this authorize staff to do that moving forward?
This authorizes staff to continue forward with eminent domain without coming back to the commission.
But you said at this time it's last resort, or are you expecting to use it, or?
That's speculative at this point. I know looking at the route, there are some challenging developed properties that will be going through with this route. And we have had our first public information meeting that happened. I can't remember, a couple of weeks ago. And, some of the residents are concerned about our route. And
Michael, I think you're thinking of the other one. Sorry.
I'm thinking.
I think you're thinking of Lower Badger Mill.
Lower Badger Mill. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. This one, we don't. Rachel's been working with the property owners. We don't anticipate an issue here, but we just think as a matter of practice, we should be doing this on a routine basis just in case we have a problem. It's pretty normal for if you work. Grant, for Commissioner Foster, you've probably seen this for City of Madison acquisitions, or those of you that work in other municipalities. It's a pretty routine thing to approve the relocation order to preserve our rights to condemn should we need to. But obviously that's a process, and if we don't do it the right way, then we start the clock all over again later should we need to go to condemnation. But for this particular project, no, we don't anticipate that there's going to be an issue. We've been working with the property owner, and we think it'll be fine. But we want to preserve our rights.
Okay, Tom Wilson's got a question.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Grant. I didn't know you had a follow up. Sorry.
Grant, well, that's okay. Well, I guess go ahead. Maybe other folks that have questions. I have some comments on it, but I can save those.
Okay, Tom, you have a question?
Yeah, when I was a staff at Rosemont and I did this kind of work, that was sort of our recommendation when anybody was going to take any project that they might be even negotiating with people regarding land. Lisa did a good job of explaining it. It was sort of our routine for people that were even taking like this temporary easements. You just need to have the governing body take action to authorize, proceeding. Otherwise, if there is an issue that comes up later, even if it's seems outside of the realm of possibility that someone's going to dispute anything that you might be doing, it enables you to negotiate. It's following the statutory procedures for eminent domain to the letter. And boy, I'm going back, 24 years ago when I used to do this. So anyway, I don't know, Grant, if that helps you or not, but that's sort of a standard operating procedure when this comes up. Thanks.
And
Okay.
hi, I'm Rachel. I'm the project engineer. I just do want to reaffirm that we are working with the landowner and that there is a process for this. And the relocation order, essentially it's in attachment number 2. It gives an overview. It's really the first thing in the process. So we do have to decide early on, even before we start the process, whether or not we want to leave that door open for ourselves. Again, if we need it. But we do have to decide early on, in the relocation order essentially is the first step. Otherwise, if we get down a road that we don't leave that door open, then we do have to redo work, essentially resources, and potentially delay the project. So I just want to give that explanation as well.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Grant, what I would like to do is to move item J to item 4, 3J to be item 4B, because I don't think the consent calendar is a method for it's mainly questions and stuff like that. So if we're going to have a little more discussion, what I'd like to do is move 3J to become 4B. Do we have the commission's consent to do that?
All fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need a motion, Tom?
Yeah, why don't you do that, Ken?
I would make a motion to move 3J to 4B on the agenda.
Seconded, Murphy.
Okay, motion by Clark, second by Commissioner Murphy to move 3J to 4B. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so I don't think we have any questions on any of the other items, 3A through 3I. So do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar items 3A through 3I?
So moved, Commissioner Meyer.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Wilson, I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Estrich, I believe. So Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Estrich to approve the consent calendar items 3A through 3I. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, that will take us to topics. 4A, the approved policy, approval of a policy of capital project bundling. Bill Walker, you're going to handle this one?
I am indeed. Give me a moment to get my slides started. You should be seeing a title slide. Please let me know if that's true. And if you're doing thumbs up, I can't see you. You have no idea.
I don't see anything.
Not yet, Bill.
You're not seeing it. All right, let's try it again. How's that? There we go.
There, yep.
Alrighty.
Got it.
Well done. Good morning. I'm Bill Walker, Strategy Director. I am here to ask you to amend a current commission policy. This is one of those topics that I think is straightforward and non-controversial, but I have been here long enough to know that I'm sometimes wrong about that. I will proceed as if it is simple, meaning I'll just stick to the main policy points and stay out of the details. But if you find you want more, please let me know and I'll go into greater detail. I'm going to do 4 things today. Give you a little history about where this policy came from, talk about the improvements we want to make, take questions, if any, and then ask you to approve Resolution R9. And to start with, I have almost a philosophical point. When a capital project idea is born, Our job is to analyze its merits as a standalone idea all by itself. Is this thing worth it? Is the benefit we will get worth the time and the money and the displacement of other projects? And then when a project passes that test and gets to implementation, our job switches. Our job becomes to get the work done as efficiently as possible. And sometimes that means doing the work in conjunction with some other closely related piece of work. For instance, if two projects both affect the same pump station, it may be more efficient to do them as a single effort, basically bundle them into one project for implementation. And here is an illustration of that idea. 3 projects analyzed separately at the beginning for their value as standalone items, and then bundled into one to be implemented. And here's the problem. If you bundle too early, you can't analyze standalone merits. And this, by the way, is why we do not do large additions anymore. We used to do big plant-wide projects, $20, $30 million. And they were so large that we could not be sure that each part of the addition was actually justified. So we changed our practice several years ago, and now we make a point to keep projects separate while we're developing them. But if you bundle too late for situations where it's useful, you end up implementing in an inefficient, wasteful way. And to address that problem, we amended the Commission Policy Book on April 11th of 2019. Like I said, by that time, we had already moved away from the large addition concept. We had stopped making the bundle too early error, but we realized we were still vulnerable to the bundling too late error. And it was liquid process improvement phase 1 that made this clear. That set of projects was developed, several separate projects, to facilitate the analysis I mentioned. Among the pieces of that project, East Blower, $700,000, UV system, $2.8 million, peak capacity, 4.7. But at implementation time, it helped us tremendously to bid and manage them together. So we applied this new bundling policy. And the key effect is shown on this slide. The previous separate dollar items no longer controlled. Instead, the work was treated as one large project with a new large cost limit. We were no longer doing peak capacity by itself, for instance, as a single $4.7 million piece of work. We were doing liquid process improvements phase 1 as a combined $16.8 million piece of work. We'd already analyzed and justified it, bidding it as one made it much easier to get good bids and to manage it. So the current policy meets its main goal, as I described, but here's the remaining problem for us. Current policy still requires us to track costs as if the projects were still separate. We don't have to do anything with this info except report it for, quote, informational purposes, whatever those are. And it's good we don't have to do anything with this separate cost info because the figures are not really real. What we've learned through liquid process phase 1 is that tracking costs for formerly separate projects is somewhere between impractical and impossible. And it's easy to picture why. If you're an engineer working on a now bundled project that used to be 2, there's no longer a meaningful way to distinguish how much of your time goes to each of what used to be separate things. And the same is true for consultant time and for materials. It's one effort. Trying to track costs separately wastes staff time, and frankly, it makes us feel like we're lying a little bit. So the proposal is to remove that requirement from the current policy, no longer require us to track costs as if they were separate. One other point here, which I think is important, even if we could get reliable separate cost information, it's not useful. It's not needed for spending control. It is not needed for any accounting purpose. It's not needed for individual project management. Engineers don't use this information. So that's goal 1, get rid of the separate tracking requirement. There's a second goal. The current policy lets us bundle at the very, very end at bid time. But when I asked people about this policy, asked them to review it, They suggested situations where bundling earlier could be useful. I think the easiest example is designing two projects as one. So the other request here in this change is to allow that possibility in the policy, allow earlier bundling at whatever point makes sense for implementation efficiency. And then a few remaining points. As I mentioned, the key point here is when you bundle, you shift the point of cost control. Individual limits don't control anymore. There's new one large limit. And because of that, and I'm sure you will agree, the proposal retains commission approval of bundling. This is a commission action, either separately during the year or as part of the CIP itself. Bundling is kind of a break in the timeline of a project, if you will. So the proposal would require us to note that change in the next CIP, so it's very clear what happened in the record. Third, the current policy language was not as clear as it could be, in my opinion at least, so we tried to sharpen it. And last, we changed the term to bundling. I have been using the word bundling this whole time because that is what everyone here calls it. But the current policy is titled consolidation, and oddly, that word doesn't appear in the policy itself. It uses the word combination, which seems unnecessary use of multiple words. So we switched to just bundling. You have the full edits in the packet. I can put them on the screen if you want to see them. Those are the main policy goals. Like I said, I think this is simple. I'll take any questions. And then if you would, please approve resolution R9.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Bill? Bill, I've got a question. You talked about the CIP would show the bundling after it occurs. I think that's the way I understood you. Could you, and you must have an idea when you do the CIP of what prospective projects will be bundled. Can that be shown in the initial CIP, before they're bundled? Because you must have an idea that these projects kind of relate to each other, like you were showing there with the liquid processing. So is it possible that you can show, that these, like some type of letter or color that these projects will in different sections might actually be bundled into the same, end up being bundled together? Not that we want to hold you to your, to that, but just thinking that might help as we approve the CIP to know what projects you're thinking about prospective bundling.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think we could look into doing that. And it's actually timely in an interesting way because liquid process phase 2 is on the docket. We've been having this discussion. Are we ready to bundle these? And we have decided no, it's still not clear exactly what each individual component is going to be. But maybe we could indicate that they are related to one another and that there's a possibility there. I wouldn't want to commit to bundling because one of my themes here is you folks get to decide if it's bundling or not. But I like the representation idea.
Yeah, I think we wouldn't want to hold you to it, but I think it makes sense. And then we get an idea of what the separate projects and how they work together and are integrated.
Yeah.
So Beth's got a question.
Yeah, thank you. Bill, I think this sounds like a great idea and a good way to, increase efficiency and possibly even decrease costs. But I'm just curious, would the commission know what potential cost savings there might be? Or, could you identify some of the benefits for us? I think that would be really helpful.
And you're looking to quantify or at least estimate some of those benefits. That is an interesting question. I do not want to overpromise here because I'm not the expert on individual project cost estimation, but I'm going to take that idea back and see what we can do the next time we come with a bundling request to describe why we think this is beneficial, is essentially what you're asking. Explain why this is useful and try to quantify it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I agree with what Beth was saying. I think it's a good idea. I will also say that it's probably difficult to quantify savings. We should get some kind of economy of scale at some point, just in efficiencies if you're using one main contractor rather than having 5 or 6 contractors on each on smaller separate projects, but I would
And-
suspect it is hard to quantify.
I
I
will
do like
note
your
that-
comment that when we kind of moved away from the large projects, because I remember, we were having $18-20 million projects 20 years ago. And I think what we saw from that, there were things that were inconsistent with each other too, that one project later on would have to clean up effects from a prior project that had occurred, and things didn't turn out the way they thought they would. So you're putting more money in to clean up something that occurred earlier on because there was an inconsistency, something in the processing system. So, Ezra, you got a question? Your hand up.
Just a thought, building on Beth's good point. A now bundled project will have a business case in that capital improvement plan, and it seems to me that the business case can cover, well, why was it a good idea to bundle these? Why is this project now combined the right thing for us to do? And I think, Bill, that might be the place where you guys can cover, how come these formerly 3 separate projects are now one? Just that occurred to me as a logical way to address that, and I think hit that point that's a really good one that Beth brought up.
Good point.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the resolution for the policy change? Oh, Brad, you've got your hand up. Sorry.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the policy change. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a good presentation, Bill, and I think it should work nicely.
Okay.
Wilson, I'll second Brad's
Motion by
wonderful
Commissioner-
motion.
Yep. Motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by Commissioner Wilson to approve the resolution for alteration of the relative to capital project bundling. Any further questions? Okay, don't see any hands up. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Bill. Hope this
Thank
makes
you.
some sense and that we see how this works. Okay, that will take us to what was now item 4B, the approval of the relocation order and determination of necessity for pump station 17, force main relief. Phase 2, that's Rachel's project. Grant, you had some comments you wanted to bring up or questions?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for folks that kind of tried to help explain the process. Lisa, as you mentioned, it's a pretty normal thing that we might do at the city, so I feel familiar with it. I think my questions and doubts are around there's a pretty big difference between successful negotiations and condemnation when someone is not in agreement. And I don't feel right now from the materials that I have a good enough understanding of all of the land interests and whether there's expectations around, strong objections from anyone, and if so, alternatives, et cetera. So I think my hesitation is not in starting this process, and I understand why it's important. And I think I support starting this for the district right now. My question is really around the sort of pre-approval authority to the chief engineer to pursue condemnation and basically moving that out of the sort of commission realm. And so if the ask is to do that right now, then I guess I'm looking for more information about all of the needed land and the kind of landowners and what conversations have happened to date and what's anticipated in terms of consent in that process.
Sure, I'll try to answer that. I think that's a few questions, but I'll do my best here to kind of walk you through it. So let me get back to the actual, that item on here. Maybe I can share my screen here. And sorry, we don't have a presentation prepared because we were anticipating this was consent, but I will find it. I apologize here.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say as an aside, I mean, this has been a really significant issue in my experience on the city. And it's you know, I'm very much supportive of staff being able to pursue, get, you know, easements as needed, as you know, again, consented to, but if we run into a situation where there's a property owner that does not agree and we move forward with our condemnation authority, that feels like a setup if we do that right. If I do that as a commissioner right now without knowing anything about it, and then having this essentially just be a kind of outside of the commission realm. So that's what I'm just trying to zero in on.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
No.
Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is the entire alignment of the force main. And most of it goes through public lands, which Dane County's lands, which we actually do not have condemnation authority for. So the point is kind of moot for them. But the ones where we are getting private land or easements are, and again, this is all just easements. This is not, it's permanent easements for the pipe and then temporary easements for construction. And the only private parcels are these couple of farm fields here. Rachel has been working with them extensively. They've, you know, had many conversations. There's been public meetings already. I think we're on very good terms with these landowners. So I don't anticipate that we will need condemnation on those parcels. I do, however, think that it's as a matter of, you know, process, as others have indicated, that we should be doing this process routinely when we're acquiring real estate, just because of the potential uncertainty. I don't anticipate it coming into play on this project, but you know, it could come into play on other projects, and it's just a good practice to follow the process. Furthermore, I think, you know, the more research we've been doing into this, and again, we're not real estate professionals, but, you know, the research we've been doing on this also indicates that, you know, we should actually be following the Chapter 32 process with projects that have Clean Water Fund loans. So, you know, there's a regulatory aspect there as well. And I'll also just point you to this. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the pamphlet that was in the packet.
Yeah,
that kind of walks you through. That kind of walks you
yeah.
through the law and how it works. And so, you know, this piece, what we're saying right now is basically relocation order, and what it's saying is, you know, the commission is basically saying, we need these easements for a public good, and you know, we are basically starting the process on the potential to condemn. It's not saying we're going to condemn, but it's saying we are recognizing that these lands are needed for a public process. And then the resolution basically says you're authorizing staff to move forward to actually purchase those easements. So then it goes into the whole kind of next steps where once you've done that, then you're allowed to, you know, you have to get appraisals, you negotiate with the property owner, you hopefully come to an agreement at that time, which I think is where it's going to end on this one. And then in the event that you don't aren't able to agree, then you kind of go into this next process of condemnation. But the beginning pieces are really the same no matter what. So it's really just a procedural thing to protect our interests in the event that negotiations were not successful.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm wondering what I'm hearing from Commissioner Foster, it's more of a process issue on when the commission is comfortable delegating authority. And is there an opportunity for us to provide more information up front so they would be comfortable delegating that authority? And you know, this is a process that is fairly new for us. And so we're learning on what's going to work for you as a commission. Lisa, when we implement this relocation order, do we normally have a fairly good idea of alignment by the time we go to the commission?
Yes. We wouldn't be, you know, we have all these easements, basically easement descriptions prepared, and we would not, we would not do that until we were ready to say, hey, yes, we've finalized the alignment. So we've had public information meetings already. You know, we've talked to everybody. We've been working with Dane County. We've been working with these landowners. This alignment shouldn't be a surprise for anybody.
Thank you, Lisa and Michael. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if it's if I'm not being very clear, but yeah, I'm very familiar with the process. I'm very supportive of the district starting the process. My key concern is about, I just want to make sure that the commission is fully understanding of, like, condemnation it's just a big deal. It's a really big deal for a public entity to do to a private landowner. It's a thing that can be really emotional, really big deal. You're gonna, you know, and so for me, especially having it on the consent calendar, you know, I know there has been a lot of work. Like you said, there's not going to be surprises to anybody. It's not clear to me that, you know, all of the potentially affected, you know, parties have not raised strong objections, for example, right? And so knowing that is helpful for me to say, okay, great, we're going to move forward with this regardless. Or if there are concerns, you know, it just would be important to know those and to know what the alternatives are to, you know, is there an alternate routing that would change the land? And, you know, those are the things that I know can happen further down the process, but it's just it's a bizarre thing for me to have as a commissioner to agree to something that I don't even know if it's a problem yet. So I mean, one potential is either we just make sure that the commission has really good information at this moment in time, and you can say this is this is what we know about if people are on board or not, you know, that sort of thing. Or, you know, the district still commences this order, but instead of sort of pre-approving or delegating the move from negotiation to the actual judicial order for condemnation, you know, if that happens, that there could be that could come back to the commission for you know, basically approval to continue with the process. So our legal rights are maintained, but we don't have to get into a lot of detail and provide, you know, comfort to the commission unless it's actually needed, which I think hopefully is rare, and, you know, and it sounds like in this case it's not anticipated, so it would be a non-point. But in the future on a different project, if something turns out to be very confrontational with a property owner, to basically bring that back, you know, to the commission. When the commission says, yes, we agree, we're going to continue with the path that we started on, we're going to continue towards condemnation. So that's a sort of process suggestion that I'm putting out there.
I guess what I would suggest, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
Well, we've got several commissioners that want to speak, but I just want to weigh in a little bit because I was a staff member of the community and we did a lot of condemnation. And I quite frankly remember they even doing the orders before they even started talking to property owners, because they didn't want to lose, because you can screw up your rights real easily by talking to a property owner before making them aware of their full rights or anything like that. So I think and then they started hiring for some, you know, complex projects, hiring firms that do this. But I think I see Tom shaking his head, and I think you run into a situation that you lose your rights and abilities if you're not upfront with the property owner about what their rights and abilities are. And so I think that's why Fitchburg was basically getting these approved even before they started talking to somebody. So we have Tom that wants to speak and then Ken. But I had a suggestion of, if we get to the jurisdictional offer phase, that's kind of that's kind of like the endpoint, but wouldn't that have to be approved by the commission or not? Or are you suggesting you have the ability to make the jurisdictional offer without, I'm wondering if that's the point at which the commission can again weigh in.
That's what I'm suggesting. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done this, to be honest with you. I haven't done this with with you guys before. At the city of Madison, we would basically just hand it over to the real estate people, and the resolution that Commissioner Foster would see from the city of Madison's end would basically say, real estate people, here's the, we're approving the relocation order, and we're also authorizing you, real estate people, to go through whatever process you need to acquire this property. So I'm kind of, modeling it off that, but we again, I don't know that we've done this at the district. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think we probably should be.
Well, I agree we should be. And let's have Tom weigh in and then Ken. Because Tom probably he's had experience with this too.
No, never. Yeah, so you do run a risk when you're negotiating before you actually adopt these provisions we're talking about, of having to start the process over. So just from my perspective, I don't have a problem with proceeding at all. In fact, we should proceed this way. At the same time, Grant's comment about condemnation, and I did condemnation quite a bit in my previous life, before my previous life, and even at the town, we would do it once in a while. And it's an awesome power that governments have. I mean, to take somebody's property and just say, here's your money, thank you very much. It's an awesome power to have. And I understand where Grant is coming from with that. And we probably all feel that way. So from my perspective, to proceed now, and I'd even be happy to make the motion, but to have staff, give us reports and come back to us if we have to take this to another level. I don't think that's inappropriate, and I'd be happy to make that motion to proceed in that way, so that we approve the resolution as it's written and proceed, and but get regular updates from staff to let us know if we get the possibility of getting to the next steps. And the other issue that we run here is, if I'm a property owner and I'm listening to this, the price of my property just went up. That's why you start off with those appraisals, and you get the 2 appraisals, and you get the property set, and you do the procedures. So I think the district is working very properly here. But if it does have to go to the next step, there's no reason why we can't, get a line on that and get a hold of that. So I don't know, Tom, if you want me to make the motion, or if you want Ken to go first.
Why don't we have Ken go first, and
Okay.
then we'll
That sounds
do the
good.
motion?
I'll go away now.
Okay, Ken?
Yeah, Tom, I would echo Grant's feedback and concern on this. This is a very sensitive topic with the general public. And I think the commission needs some say in between authorizing the process here and prior to condemning someone's property. And if we can find a motion or a way to do that, I'm all for that.
Okay, so Grant, you have another comment?
Well, I wanted to sneak ahead with a motion that recommends approving this with and also requiring, if a jurisdictional offer is recommended to be made by the district, that it's approved by the commission.
Okay, so we have the motion to approve by Commissioner Foster with the addition to the resolution that before a jurisdictional offer is made, the commission has to approve any jurisdictional offer before it's presented to a property owner. Is that what you're meaning, Grant? Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Foster, second by Commissioner Wilson. It's approving the resolution except saying, having a clause adding that If a jurisdictional offer is, before a jurisdictional offer is made, commission approval is necessary. Okay, everybody understand? Brad, you have a comment? Brad, you're muted.
Thank you. No, I just had a question. I wanted to get staff's reaction to the motion and ask Lisa and Michael if they're comfortable proceeding in this fashion, and also our legal counsel if he has any concerns about how the motion is being fashioned.
I think it's workable on our end, staff, but I would like to hear, again, like I said, we're not experts on real estate. So, you know, I would be curious if there's any I don't anticipate that there's any kind of legal problem there, but I'd be curious to hear just in case.
Just want to make sure we're not handcuffing ourselves and come back and regret this at some point in the future.
Well,
Go ahead, Michael, sorry.
I think we're learning. We haven't had to use the force of eminent domain on past projects. And Lisa's introduced this. We should be using good practice to do this, and we can change our policy as we learn and try it. That's one thing. So I'm very comfortable moving forward with this, but if we have difficulties, we can return to the commission, have a discussion about it. The other thing is that I think we can do is upfront when we present these relocation orders next time, it will not be on consent, and maybe we'll give you a little preview of the alignment and where we may see challenges. So at least early in that process, you can get a sense for what we'll be dealing with. This one's easy. There'll be some other projects that may be more challenging.
Having so few privately owned parcels is fairly unique, I think.
Yeah,
I think I'm surprised the district hasn't been doing this before, because this is the first time I remember it coming here, and I probably should have brought it up earlier. But we do want Paul to weigh in. And I think this raises the issue you talked about, Badger Mill Creek having issues, or people concerned with the alignment. So obviously we ought to be prepared. Well, it probably was what kind of brought it to this point for this project, was knowing what's happening with Badger Mill Creek. So Paul, did you have any questions or comments on the motion allowing the commission to approve the jurisdictional offer?
No, I don't at this time, but I would just note that Chris Hughes and Eileen Kelly of our staff have been working with Lisa and her folks on, these issues and making sure that we are not only in compliance with Chapter 32, but there are Clean Water Act requirements that require us to do that and actually comply with some federal requirements. And so they've been having discussions over the last month in terms of developing some templates for this moving forward. As I've been tracking those, I don't see anything in this motion that would be an issue, but following this meeting, I will circle back with my colleagues just to make sure there isn't anything. And should there be something, we can deal with that in the subsequent projects.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good practice to start doing this. Like I said, I'm surprised we haven't been doing it before, because we may have, particularly when you're using public money, and as Tom said, it's a big power, and maybe we've been lucky before, but at some point, luck can change. Okay, so we have the motion by Commissioner Foster, second by Commissioner Wilson, to approve the resolution with the caveat that if any jurisdictional offer before being made has to come for approval by the commission. Any further comments or discussion?
Tom.
Go ahead, Ezra.
This is a resolution, so the exact language is what we approved. Do we need to get wordsmithing today, or do we need to bring it back at a future meeting? I'm just wondering if the motion, I support the motion. It sounds like probably we have a majority that wants to go that way, but I just wonder specifically how we have to act in order to make this operational for staff going forward.
I have a suggestion and you can feel free to reject it, but my suggestion would be for this resolution, perhaps just accept it as is. Particularly because for this project, we don't anticipate going to the jurisdictional offer. And we can certainly agree to, if it should come to that, we will agree to bring you a project update at the commission regarding that. So I would suggest just leaving this one alone, having staff agree to bring it to you as a informational item should jurisdictional offer become necessary. And then for the next one that we do, right, the next one coming up, we will add in the step that we would need to come to the commission to approve a jurisdictional offer in that, so that the wording will be all, you know, everybody will have vetted the wording and all that at that time. That's my suggestion.
I don't know that I want to go there, given what the commission has been discussing. So I think it'd be fairly simple to just come up with another numbered on the now therefore hereby resolves clause. That the commission shall approve any jurisdictional offer prior to it being presented to the property owner.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll add that to the resolution.
Yeah,
Works for me.
okay. So hopefully everybody got that wording, because I don't know if I'd be able to reword it in my mind again or not, but I think
we have it.
Are we ready to vote?
Grant, there's a couple
Tom.
people with their hands up, Tom. I have a comment too.
Oh,
sorry.
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't see that. I saw a thumb up, but I didn't know if there were hands up.
Tom, in the now therefore clauses, adding what you suggested makes sense, but I think number 3 also has to be tweaked to remove the language about condemnation. Otherwise, it's not consistent internally. I don't think if it has both what's in 3 and what would be in the new added item that you suggest. It's a really pretty straightforward tweak to number 3, I think, but just making that point.
Yeah, the chief engineer's designees are authorized and directed to pursue acquisition of the property interest shown in the described attachment 1 by condemnation in accordance with chapter 33.
You just have to delete by condemnation, I think might be it.
No, that has to be in there, Ezra.
I
Or it doesn't
think
pass
it has-
muster under.
Okay,
chapter
that's part of the
32.
procedural.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but we can add, like Tom says, you know, provision for reporting or coming back before the jurisdictional offer. That's not an issue. You're still following the procedure. You just, normally I would tell you when I was at Stafford and we, you know, I was dealing a lot with smaller bodies. We just always had a report on these. You know, we would start the process. We would always go back to the governing body and say, here's what's happening. Here's where we are. You can pull the plug anytime you want, right? Or work with it, but that's how we would do it. And so here, just adding a provision, either as an extra paragraph or even just an aside in our motion that before a jurisdictional offer is made, it comes back to us for approval. That doesn't screw up the procedure and allows it all to go forward, but it still gives us the authority to keep track of this on our own as well. And the other thing that I was going to add, Tom, is that it's up to staff and probably you when you're doing the agenda at some point. If this does come back, this is a property acquisition matter, we may have to go into closed session because you're negotiating too. So it's just something to consider. I don't mind having this come back. Like I said, this is, I'm surprised it was on the part of the agenda where it was. Should probably, in the future, we should probably make this a separate matter so we can deal with it that way. But anyway, I think we've talked this to death, so thanks.
Lisa, could you move up the thing? How many numbers do we have? I see a 5. Can you go to the end of that? There's 6. Okay, so what I had suggested would be number 7. And if Ezra, if you want, we can just put a statement in number 3 saying, subject to additional points within this resolution. So you add that in number 3, and then you have number 7 as the point that I had suggested. And then that should take care of it. I think, Grant, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think we're good. I was just going to suggest from a procedural point of view, adding an amendment just verbally should have the same legal force as, like, don't have to actually change the document itself, but I think we got where we needed to go. So I think we're good.
Okay. So we'll add this point 7, as I suggested, where the commission shall approve any jurisdictional offer prior to being presented to a property owner. And in number 3, we'll just make reference to subject to any additional other points within the resolution under point 3. Okay, so are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor? Anybody have anything else? Tom?
No.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed? Okay, motion carries on the amended resolution. Okay, that will take us to item 5, which is the Chief Engineer and Director report. We first have the CED report. Michael?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. That was a good outcome, that action. And I appreciate your direction on that one. My CED update, I have, given we're closing up 2022 and moving into 2023, I have about 11 things to share with you briefly. And just to get us through the end of the year here. One, we had an air permit deviation that started on November 26th and ended on December 2nd. And this deviation was specific to the pollutant hydrogen sulfide that's in our raw biogas. We deviated from the permit conditions because of a delay in receiving ferric chloride. It was right during Thanksgiving, and the chemical that we use to treat hydrogen sulfide in the biogas couldn't get delivered in time. And we have a little bit of a challenge with, we only have so much storage for these chemicals, and for efficiency, we want a full truckload that comes. So we usually time our deliveries very closely, but given some of these issues, we didn't get it in time. We did receive the shipment on the 28th, and we were able to start regular treatment again. Usually when we introduce the chemical into the treatment process, it does take a couple of days for it to respond, and that's why you can see that the deviation went from the 26th to the 2nd. Our 2022 budget, we continue to monitor our expenditures very closely. External circumstances, inflation, supply chain, higher bids and services have really caused increases in our costs, and that's why we've been monitoring it closely. We've also had some increased costs with the digester cleaning and potential costs coming up with repairs to clarifier 8. So we're monitoring it closely, and it looks like it's going to be close whether we can stay within our budget authority. And we really won't know until we have a full accounting and all the bills are paid. So we may not know till next September, but it's close. And so that I just wanted to give you a heads up there on what's happening with budget, given just everything that's happening with the economy and supply chain issues. I'm pleased to say that the city of Madison has appointed a new commissioner, Greg Freeze. You all know Greg, and he will be sworn in at our first meeting in January, and he'll be receiving an orientation before that date. I've been working closely with the mayor's office over the last couple of months on finding an appointment, and I'm really pleased that Greg will be joining the commission with his knowledge of infrastructure and engineering. It's been Commissioner Hubble, how long has it been since we've had someone with engineering expertise on the commission? It's been a while, so that's good.
We've had a lot of lawyers.
Hey,
The next item, the CED review process. There's been a subcommittee of commissioners that have been working on that process. Tomorrow morning, the subcommittee is going to be receiving a proposal. The committee asked me to come with a proposal for a consolidated CED review process that can get done in a shorter period of time. And that proposal, we'll be making that proposal to this group tomorrow morning. And we expect, pending support for the proposal or changes to that proposal, that will be returning to the full commission for approval in January of that new process. And that process will be able to be used for my 2022 review. So we're really excited to get that hopefully wrapped up. Metro Grow, and we can go to the next slide, please, Janelle. I snapped a shot coming into work at the end of November, and this was the last day of hauling. It just shows you there's 7 trucks here queuing up first thing in the morning, getting to the field, and this was the last day of hauling, trying to chase the weather, and it really shows the flexibility and the opportunistic nature of our MetroGrow team and our haulers to be able to, when we have a window of dry weather, to get out there and haul product. And Eric Dundee will be giving a more detailed report during the operations report lower on the agenda. Owner community meetings in Badger Mill Creek. We have had 3 meetings about Badger Mill Creek compliance, and we're calling it the PLUS project, which stands for Phosphorus Limits and Updated Solutions. And over the last 2 weeks, we had 2 public listening sessions and 1 owner community meeting. And the intent of these meetings was to introduce the project to the community and to our owners, and to hear about the goals and get their initial comments. And our goals are to achieve phosphorus compliance standards for our discharge at Badger Mill Creek, to minimize harm to the biology of the stream, and maintain fiscal responsibility to ratepayers and our owner communities. During these meetings, we shared next steps in our compliance timeline, which includes engaging consultants for 2 projects. One, which will help us answer questions regarding tertiary treatment, the feasibility and costs associated with that. And the other would be looking at the biology and the impacts of the stream quality if we made changes to it. Key takeaways from our meetings were requests from the public for regular communication, as well as opportunities to provide additional public comment. We expect to do that, and we have been doing that. We've contracted with a PR firm to help us with a robust communication plan, and we're continuing to execute that plan. But in addition, we are planning for additional engagement of the public. And I want to return to the commission at our January 26th meeting to lay out what that engagement plan will look like. So the commission has a good sense of how we're going to get feedback on options and proposals for this option. And just as a note, that we do have information available on our website at madsewer.org/BMC plus. So you can find more information there. Strategic planning. We had a really great plant meeting this week, where we rolled out the strategic plan to all of our staff, and during a lunch meeting. And during this plant meeting, I explained why the plan is important, And then employees heard about the 7 focus areas and with presentations from members of the executive team. And then they had opportunities, then employees had an opportunity to ask for comments or provide comments on ways they contribute to those areas. And maybe we can go through some of the slides from the meeting. And then ended with a photograph of all employees at the district. We haven't done a photo like this for several years, and it was good to get everyone together for this strategic planning rollout and launch. Next on the clarifier. We send the clarifier to you, and I just want to remind you and just the public who can access this now that it's in the commission packet, that this employee newsletter has a lot of really good stuff about the work that employees are doing, about the culture of the district, and more in-depth articles about our daily work, employee promotions and milestones, safety, and a district history series, which has been in several of the last issues that have been written by Paul Name. And of course, there's a get to know your commissioner section, and Commissioner Meyer was featured. Next is our in-person meeting schedule. This will be reflected in your calendars, but also just make a note. We're going to have a lot of things to do this next year that probably justify in-person conversations. We have the Badger Mill Creek compliance discussions. We are going to be presenting some updates to the commission policy book, for the CED review process. But I wanted to check in here briefly. When we've developed the policy book and made modifications, the approach that I've taken, that I brought draft language to the commission, and then we've worked through the policy changes. And I want to see if that approach is still okay or supported by you, or whether you'd like me to do a pre-meeting with you to kind of go through more conceptually some of the changes we want to make. I know we're going to be making some major revisions to the CED review process. We're also going to be fixing some of the negative language that's been in there about that thou shall not fail to language that the commissioners, that we all had challenges with, to make it more positive sounding. But there might be other things that we should be moving into that process. So I just want to check in quickly here with President Hubble to see if the commission is supportive with me bringing a draft to work through as the process.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it'd be better to, if depending on what the strength of schedule is, to see something, kind of your conceptual ideas before you bring a draft. That's kind of my thinking. That way we had that second checkpoint before seeing the draft, and then all of a sudden maybe you've drafted something that we didn't want drafted or differently or something like that. Does that make sense, Michael?
Oh, yes, that is a good step, and we're happy to do that.
Grant, you have a comment?
Yeah, just especially in terms of the employee handbook, it would be helpful at probably any of the touch points to just get and I think it's something that ELC, has talked about, making sure there's a good opportunity for employee and ELC sort of comments, either if they're something that you can share out that you've already collected, or knowing that there's an invitation for them to send sort of comments, responses to the commission. That's just something that has come up in the past, of sort of a desire to have employees feel connected with the commission, and this seems like one of those spaces where it might be good. So just thinking about that, Michael, in terms of either again, you're sharing out feedback that was received from folks, or knowing that there's an opportunity or an invitation for them to kind of see that and provide comments as well in whatever moments it makes sense.
I think if it's okay, I think I'd like to start with the commission on because it's your policy book, and get a sense of where you want to take it, and then we can see what changes we're going to make, and then where the ELC would plug in. Would that work?
Yeah, I think maybe just setting good expectations that there will be opportunities for that feedback, and in a sequence where it can be meaningfully incorporated. So I think as long as folks know that ahead of time, know where that fits in, and feel that it's a fair and effective place to be able to have their contributions in there, I think that works for me for sure.
Yes, particularly with the CED review process. I appreciate that.
Okay, Michael, so what I see is you've got 6 in-person meetings, kind of heavy loaded in the first quarter of the year. Is that right? The January 12th, February 9th, March 16th, May 25th, July 13th, and October 12th?
It is, and that may, we may heavily load it towards the end of the year too, depending on the commission's calendar and study sessions. This is just what we know of right now.
Right.
And in the direction I received from the commission, if you feel, we're not going to just have quarterly study sessions, in-person study sessions, but if you feel there's a topic that would be better for in-person dialogue, to propose in-person meetings, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So this is what we know for now.
Okay, so that's so commission members kind of make note of that. Those are the ones we know for now, but there could be more added, or some of these could be changed depending on what happens with the agenda items, if an agenda item gets postponed or something like that. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Michael?
One last thing is office space, and over the last couple of weeks, we've been converting space to more space, because we're running out of space in the operations building. This first picture this used to be a copy and map room that we've converted to 6 workstations. And if you go to the next photograph, this is another single office in the maintenance facility that's converted to 2 workstations, and you can see there's the windows, and it's so we're starting to get crowded, and that's why we're doing this campus study where we'll be able to evaluate some of our space needs and office space needs. One interesting note that in terms of remote work, that 62 of our 125 employees are eligible for remote work. And of those 62, 55 of them are in the office 3 or more days a week, which is actually quite unusual for the post-COVID return, that we're having many of our employees come back and work a significant amount of their time in the office. And I bring that up here because as we're looking at office space needs, we're starting to get our arms around our remote work behavior and how we're getting work done. And employees feel to be effective, they need to be at the office for a certain period of time, just for more collaboration and team meetings. I just wanted to just give you that knowledge of our space needs challenges.
Michael, I got a question. Will that be looking at, my neighbor works for a design firm, and they don't have individual spaces for individual persons. It's just, you basically sign up, you're going to be he's in the office pretty much every day, but he signs up for a space, and then, he takes his laptop or whatever. And so they don't have designated workstations. You basically sign up for a space, and then people can make the decision, working from home or working, so then I've heard of other businesses moving that too. I don't know if that's something to consider. If And I can understand why people are at work because there's the contact it has always been thought to be important. Grant, you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just plus one to the concept of thinking about kind of flex swing space going forward. But it's great, Michael, you're thinking on this in advance too. I just wanted to quick comment on the schedule and the in-person meetings. We at the Madison Common Council ended up adopting essentially a hybrid format for the council meetings. A lot of the committee meetings are virtual only, but for the council, we've been doing a hybrid. It requires some technology and some steps to make it work, but I've been a little bit surprised at how I think well it's been working, and I think it's good to consider. If as a commission we want to accommodate someone connecting in virtually, even for those in-person sessions, and if so, kind of what's the best way we can do that. I've had a couple experiences where it's a little tough to do, and I think I understand the value of kind of trying to bring everybody together, but if we are going to have somebody kind of connect in, should that be over the phone? Is it going to be with video? And so maybe just if there's somebody could look in a little bit to what a sort of more supported kind of hybrid might look like, or how we might be able to integrate kind of remote video participation and deal with some of the audio issues. I think it might be good to kind of start looking into, and something that we could offer going forward.
Thank you. That concludes my report, unless there are any other comments from the commission.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments? I don't see any hands up, so thank you, Michael. Then you've got the 4th District, the clarifier and staff newsletter, or did you go through that? No, you hadn't done that.
I went through it.
Staff meeting. Oh, you did? Okay.
Fine.
Okay, that's right. With the okay, operations report. Alan?
Nope, Commissioner Hovell, it's going to be Eric Dundee.
Oh, Eric. Okay.
But that's all right. Thank you. Get myself started here. Okay, so this report is for November. One thing to note here for plant performance is most of the parameters are as usual, except for total suspended solids and phosphorus is up a bit. We did have a day in November, late November the 23rd, where our sampler picked up a very large concentration of total suspended solids. That's basically meaning that from one of our clarifiers, what we'd call a large flock made it to the effluent sampler. And instead of our average being about 4.5 milligrams per liter, that day was 68 milligrams per liter. Now that doesn't lead us into a permit violation for the monthly level, but as you see, it is elevated.
Hey,
note,
Eric, your presentation actually isn't showing.
Well, shoot. Are you're just seeing my screen?
We just see your name.
Oh boy. Let's try again.
So now we see your screen.
Hey.
There we go.
That? There it is.
I apologize. Okay, well, back to my story. If you look at the total suspended solids, it is raised. That one significant day changed our monthly average by basically 2 milligrams per liter. As a one-of, not a significant issue, but it is something we are going to have to pay attention to for when we do clarifier cleanings during our UV season, and how that's going to kind of change things for us. It does relate to phosphorus coming up a little bit. The other parameters it shouldn't affect. So more to come on that. The resource recovery numbers, as we're getting into the November numbers, you can actually really take a good look at what the yearly trend looks like. Clean water down because all of our flows are down. Biogas very much down because we've been updating our engine generators, so we're not reusing all that biogas as we have in the past years. And reused effluent is actually way up, find more ways to use that. November resource recovery numbers, really not much to note here, except for if you look at the biosolids storage, MetroGrow season had ended there in November, as Michael had that picture, and I'll get into here in a second. So our tanks are at 16% full, which is great, gets us to June of next year, so we shouldn't have any issues there. In correlation here, you'll see our MetroGrow number at 35.5 million gallons that we produced. So when you get to the MetroGrow yearly numbers here of what we've sent out, you're going to see a very similar number. Any questions on any of the operations panels before I get into our MetroGrow season end report? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and get into it. So for 2022, we did officially have a season that ended on November 30th. Basically, that was the last day we attempted to haul. Ultimately, after that, frost was too deep and couldn't get into the ground. One for DNR regulation reasonings, but two also for equipment. We did go ahead and deliver 35 million gallons of biosolids, which of course is equivalent here to some stats that I love to show. Is it's 90 farms, over 4,900 acres, and 7,600 truckloads, all within about a 30-mile radius for the district. So that's a lot of traffic, a lot of things moving there. As we get into the hauling season review for our numbers, the one thing I want the commission to do is just take a pause and think about every time we come to the commission looking for a new Oxbow applicator, that large dollar amount. This year, we set a record of over 1 million gallons in a day. Our previous record was 992,000 gallons. Not only did we go over 1 million gallons in one day, we did it 4 consecutive days in a row, which means that our equipment and our processes have become more efficient. And that was 214 semi-loads of biosolids out in one day was our record. So I just want to say thank you for approving that equipment upgrade. It really helps us get things out faster with climate change and all of our weather struggles. This is making it better. Not only is it making it better, we're also doing better on the application. As you can see on this slide, 65% of all acres we applied to used low disturbance injection. So they're again trying to make sure that the phosphorus and all the biosolids are in the ground, and we're helping farmers as we go. So my last slide is a typical slide we like to do is give them a congratulations to our MetroGrow staff. The only person not pictured here is Zach Thompson, who's our biosolids specialist, who is usually out in the field doing all the testing and permitting for the fields before our MetroGrow operations crew gets in there. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you, Commissioner Hovell.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I just had one question or comment. We've been sitting at like that 40 million gallons per day for years in terms of treatment. Is our bio, I can't remember back, but are our biosolids pretty steady too, or do those increase because there's, with the water saving devices?
Yeah, so
washing machines and dishwashers and that?
Yeah, so this actually relates to the quarterly billing that you hear from Todd about, where the flows are down, but the loadings are up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really all those loadings, that is the biosolids.
Okay.
So actually a really good rule of thumb I use is, however millions of gallons of water we're receiving, is approximately what I'm expecting millions of gallons of biosolids to leave. You know, it just seems like, you know, we are averaging 36 million gallons. We're at 35 million plus in biosolids. So that's just my rule of thumb.
Okay, so there is a relationship. Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you. So that will take us to the Paul with his regulatory and legal.
Good morning. Yes, we're at the end of the year, and so there's not a lot going on the regulatory side. The legislature is not going to convene until early next year. I suspect there will be a number of things. I've heard that there are some Clean Water Fund tweaks that are likely to appear in the budget bill, so we'll be tracking those, and rules will continue to move apace. The one thing that I want to just note for you is the department's PFAS rules continue along the path. And I mentioned there was a hearing on the scope statement in the handout. Some of you may have seen in this morning's paper that the Natural Resources Board just approved that scope statement. So that official rule process will continue to go forward with respect to 4 of the most significant PFAS compounds. So we will continue to monitor that, but also be monitoring what's happening on the federal level, because quite frankly, we're now in a situation where the feds are a little bit ahead of the state in terms of the numeric standards and implications for permits. So we'll continue to track those. Other than that, things have been pretty quiet.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Anybody have any questions? I don't see any hands up. Okay. So that takes us to future meeting schedule. Michael kind of covered some of that already with the when he was going through the in-person meetings. And Michael, one question I had is there was going to be that presentation by IT, and then that got delayed. You know when that is scheduled?
I'll follow up on that.
You're gone at that point.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so any future agenda topics? Any other, Grant, you have a comment?
Well, future agenda topic, just the, we got the kind of regulatory update on PFAS, and just curious, I'm assuming it's maybe already in kind of the work plan or schedule, but when would the commission get kind of a subsequent update on our testing, et cetera, for PFAS? So don't need an answer, but just if that could get, thought of in terms of getting on a future agenda.
Okay.
I see Michael was nodding his head, so he'll get that on a future agenda update. Is there anything you had to add, Michael? No. You're off if you.
Well, I know we are scheduling it to return to the commission, and I just don't know the date right offhand, but I'll make sure we get that on if it's not.
Okay. And any other business? If not, happy holidays, everybody. Tom, you're going to make the motion?
I would move we adjourn. And happy holidays all of you.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Clark to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.
See y'all.
Good remainder of the week and good Christmas.
Hi, happy holidays.
Have a good
Stay
holiday.
safe out there.